Welcome to Reno's World Podcast. I'm your host, Reno Rains, and today we're diving into one of the hottest mysteries around, spontaneous human combustion. We'll explore the legends, the science, and everything in between that sets the world ablaze with curiosity. Before we get fired up, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Let's ignite this conversation. Welcome to Reno's World, where we uncover the sparks behind the mystery. Burning questions, unraveling the fiery mystery of spontaneous human combustion. In the annals of unexplained phenomena, few topics ignite the imagination, and quite literally, like spontaneous human combustion, SHC. Picture this, an ordinary person sipping a late-night drink or dozing off after a cigarette suddenly erupts into an inferno as if possessed by a rogue pyromaniac spirit. Over the centuries, reports of bodies reduced to ashes, while their surroundings remain mysteriously unscathed, have fueled wild speculation, lurid headlines, and even literary masterpieces. But is this a genuine paranormal occurrence, or merely an illusion born of misinterpretation and sensationalism? Let's fan through the scorched pages of history, examine forensic evidence, and set ablaze the myths that have long surrounded SHC, fiery legends and historical infernos. The legend of SHC isn't a modern invention. Its roots stretch back to the 14th century when tales of knights and noblewomen bursting into flame after a bout of inebriation first flared up. The infamous case of Polonius Vorstius, a knight in 1470 Italy, supposedly set himself ablaze after one too many glasses of wine. Fast forward to the 18th century, and we encounter the case of Nicole Millet from Reims, 1725, where a court was so baffled that a husband was acquitted after his wife's death was attributed to spontaneous combustion. These early accounts, documented in texts like Jonas Dupont's seminal De Incendias Corporis Humani Spontaneis, 1763, fanned the flames of public curiosity and doubt. But nothing has captured our modern imagination quite like the 20th century cases. The story of Mary Reeser in St. Petersburg, Florida, 1951, stands as the poster child of SHC. Found nearly incinerated in her apartment, save for her left foot encased in a slipper, Mary's demise seemed to defy logic. How could a body be so completely reduced to ash, with nearby furniture left almost untouched? The mystery deepened as investigators, puzzled by the heat confined to a small area, began whispering about the possibility of a cinder lady, ignited by the flames of fate. Another blazing enigma emerged with John Irving Bentley, a 92-year-old physician from Pennsylvania, whose body was found nothing but a pile of ashen remains, save for the lower half of his right leg still sporting his slipper. His home, remarkably, bore little evidence of the conflagration that had consumed him, except for a gaping hole in the floor and a lingering, almost eerie blue smoke reminiscent of an otherworldly campfire. Across the Atlantic in 1982, the tragic case of Jeannie Saffin in London added fuel to the fire of speculation. Paranormal enthusiasts claimed she had burst into flames from within, with onlookers describing surreal, dragon-like roars as she ignited. Yet skeptics and later investigations pointed to more mundane causes, burning clothing and the destructive nature of heated synthetic fibers. The science behind the blaze, the Wick effect. Despite the tantalizing details that seem ripped from the pages of a horror novel, forensic science has thrown cold water on the idea of spontaneous human incineration. The leading explanation, the Wick effect, demonstrates that under very specific conditions, a human body can indeed burn in a seemingly inexplicable way. Here's how it works. A small external ignition source, say a cigarette or a lit match, sets the victim's clothing ablaze. The burning fabric then liquefies the fat beneath the skin, which soaks into the clothes, much like the wick of a candle drawing up wax. This process sustains the fire at a relatively low temperature for hours, allowing the body to be gradually consumed while the surrounding environment remains largely unscathed. Experiments have replicated this phenomenon with astonishing success. In a memorable BBC QED experiment, scientists wrapped a dead pig in a blanket and ignited it. The pig's fat acted exactly like candle wax, burning steadily, almost hypnotically, without causing catastrophic damage to nearby objects. It's a dramatic demonstration that transforms an eerie mystery into a process rooted in well-understood chemical reactions. Media sensationalism fanning the flames. While scientific explanations provide a logical framework, media and pop culture have played their part in stoking the inferno of belief in SHC. Authors like Charles Dickens, with his vivid depiction of Mr. Crook in Bleak House, and sensationalized newspaper accounts, have exaggerated details to produce a narrative of a paranormal curse. Headlines declare that bodies burst into flames from the inside out and leave behind ghostly piles of ash, images that are as compelling as they are misleading. In today's digital age, the myth persists on websites and social media, where snippets of half-truths merge with outright fabrications. Lists proclaiming top 10 unsolved cases of spontaneous human combustion make it easy for the public to forget that many of these cases have plausible, if gruesome, explanations. Investigative reporters and paranormal enthusiasts sometimes blur the lines between fact and fiction, ensuring that the mystery continues to capture our collective imagination. Weighing the evidence, real flame or fool's gold? So, is spontaneous human combustion real? Let's set the record straight with a burst of fiery clarity. 1. External ignition is always present. In nearly every well-documented case, from Mary Reeser to Jeannie Saffin, a tiny external flame, often a cigarette or match, can be identified as the spark that initiated the process. There is no scientifically validated evidence that a human body can simply ignite from within without an external trigger. 2. The Wick effect explains the phenomenon. The slow, sustained burning of human fat via the Wick effect is a robust scientific explanation that accounts for the unusual patterns of burning observed in these cases. This mechanism perfectly explains why victims' extremities, which contain less fat, often remain intact. 3. Environmental and personal factors. Many of the individuals involved in these cases were elderly, debilitated, or impaired by substances like alcohol. Such conditions not only increase the likelihood of accidents, like falling asleep with a lit cigarette, but also reduce a person's ability to respond to a fire, making the destructive process seem inexplicable in hindsight. Number 4, sensationalism over science. The notion of spontaneous combustion has been greatly exaggerated by sensational media and cultural storytelling. The dramatic imagery of a person bursting into flames serves as excellent fodder for horror stories and urban legends, but when scrutinized under scientific principles, the flames quickly die out as mere misinterpretations of a natural, though tragic, event. The fiery verdict. After sifting through centuries of case reports, forensic studies, and media hype, the scorching truth emerges. Spontaneous human combustion, in the sense of an unprovoked, self-igniting human body, is not a paranormal or mystical phenomenon. Instead, what we witness in these cases is the slow, almost mesmerizing process of the Wick effect, a real physical reaction initiated by a small external flame and fueled by the body's own fat reserves. While the idea of a human turning into a blazing inferno without any external cause is a narrative that sets our hearts racing and our imaginations alight, the evidence firmly points to natural explanations. The scientific community remains unconvinced by claims of spontaneous combustion without an identifiable ignition source. In essence, the phenomenon is not spontaneous at all. It is the tragic result of overlooked external factors compounded by the body's inherent properties. In conclusion, spontaneous human combustion is not the ghostly supernatural occurrence that folklore and sensational journalism would have us believe. Instead, it is a fascinating, if horrifying, demonstration of chemical and physical principles in action. The mystery may continue to smolder in the public imagination, but the flames of scientific inquiry have burned away the myth, revealing that while bodies can indeed burn in mysterious ways, it is all driven by very earthly causes. So should we fear that one day we might just burst into flames? Hardly. Instead, we should marvel at the complex interplay of factors that can lead to such dramatic outcomes, and perhaps be a little more cautious with that late-night cigarette. The evidence points firmly to the mundane, and yet marvelously tragic truth that the so-called spontaneous human combustion is nothing more than a misinterpreted accident, a blazing case of nature's own Wick effect. All right, folks, that's a wrap on today's deep dive into spontaneous human combustion. I hope you enjoyed unraveling this blazing mystery with me. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Until next time on Reno's World Podcast, stay curious and keep the spark of wonder alive. I'm Reno Rains, signing off.